You're listening to The Art of Imperfect Adulting. I'm your host, Amy Stone. Here, I share stories from real people navigating the adventure that I call adulting. Are you ready? Me too. Let's do this. Well, hello, friends. In this episode, I'm going to introduce you to Elizabeth Rivas, Liz Rivas, and we're going to talk about travel and sisterhood and also some relationship stuff. Welcome to The Art of Imperfect Adulting. Liz Rivas, are you ready for a fun chat?
I'm so ready. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm happy you're here. I start all my conversations with the same two warm-up questions. What part of the world do you call home?
I'm currently in Miami, Florida.
Oh my goodness, me too.
Ooh, hey, come, let's hang out.
We should hang out. That is very good. So yeah, I call Miami, Florida, Coconut Grove home. So those
Nice.
are my
I'm in
next.
Edgewater.
Oh, exactly. So, okay. We'll talk about that off camera. I almost just went way off track with the neighborhoods and how they're all named the same thing, even though there's 27 of them in Miami. But that's not a topic for the community. What's something you love about being in the Edgewater portion of Miami right now?
I mean, the edge of the water. I have a beautiful apartment that faces the ocean. I get to see the sunrises every morning. It's very walkable here, and it's just an awesome city. I mean, I travel so much, and there's really nothing like Miami.
That is the understatement of the day. Miami is its own unique every city has its unique things, but Miami is definitely a unique place. I've lived here a long time, so I like it. So your story begins with actually the end of a relationship. And the relationship is not actually the focus of the conversation. But if it's all right with you, I'd love to start by asking you how long you were married.
I was married 0 seconds.
Ah,
Long story short, I had a wedding in Dominican Republic. We had 100 of our closest friends and family there. And basically, we were going to do the paperwork after the wedding. But fortunately, the wedding was such a disaster that we did not do that. So kind of dodged a bullet there, but was a very weird breakup nonetheless. I could totally dive into kind of how that happened. I think it's a fun story.
so you had the party though. You got to have the party with all your friends.
Yes. And as a woman that loves to plan events, I'm sure going to enjoy my party, even if I was traumatized. But I spent any woman that plans a wedding knows how much goes into planning a party. So I'm like, I'm going to have a good time no matter what.
I love it. But the party is the party, but a party is not a wedding. So like the marriage and the party are two different things. So I totally vibe with that 100%. So I thought there was a divorce, but there wasn't really. But as a part of this like separation, and you can tell us as much about that, the end of the relationship as you want to. But what you shared with me when you gave me the information for this show was that through this, you realized that you had slowly lost yourself maybe in getting ready for the wedding or what? So speak more about that because I do hear that from a lot of women.
Yeah, so long story short, my partner was struggling with addiction most of his life. And this is something that he told me when we first started dating. So basically it was something that was kind of a theme in our relationship, but obviously he was anybody that deals with anyone that has addiction knows that then when they are not in active addiction, that they're a wonderful person and they are just a beam of light. And unfortunately, addiction takes over and turns them into a different person. They were sober for about 9 months before the wedding, and one thing led to another. Dominican Republic, all your friends, everybody's visiting people. It's all inclusive. Your friends from college, your friends from all walks of life, and everybody's partying and having a good time. And unfortunately, started the slippery slope to relapsing over the weekend. One beer turned into being fully relapsed at the altar on drugs and alcohol. Could not stand holding on to the altar, bloodshot eyes, drooling. And honestly, as somebody who has been dating someone with addiction, you sometimes think, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen is them being drunk at the altar. But this was beyond drunk. This was completely obliterated. And I saw him from afar as the golf cart was bringing me to the aisle to walk down the aisle. His parents were holding him up on each side, bringing him to the altar. And when I saw him and we were about to exchange our vows, and I looked at him and I'm like, this isn't it. We went through the ceremony, we did all the things. I was holding on to him with both hands at the altar, just holding him like, okay, this is, everyone's looking at me, everybody knows that he's drunk, and people are looking at me, and I'm like, thank God for Botox, because nobody knew what I was feeling. It was poker face. um, and then we walked down the aisle. We went for our dip kiss that we practice, and I was very stupid to think that he was going to be able to land it. I fell into the sand in my $3,000 dress, and then we had to take pictures and all of that. But at that moment, it was really hard to process everything. But I knew that this was not the life that I wanted for myself. If you can show up when it's the most important day of your lives, and there's your friends and your family and all of your loved ones and people traveling near and far to see you and the man you are, I knew that that was not the type of man that I wanted to be with for the rest of my life, and definitely not have children with. So I decided to pack all my things after the wedding, start fresh, moved into a 1 bedroom apartment, and heal the only way that I knew how was through movement, through travel, through solo traveling, through digital nomading. And basically that was what my 2025 was, is 12 different countries and doing all the things to heal. And fortunately, I feel like I'm in a really good place now, but definitely travel was the healing aspect of it for sure.
All right, so you have clearly told this story before, and you just went right through all of the points. So I'm going to rewind a little bit and touch on those. So the marriage didn't really happen, and the wedding sounds like it was really, really emotional because I mean, I have not been through that. I mean, things always go wrong in every live event because you can't do it. But a wedding is a spectacular thing, a very special thing, a lot of pressure on that one moment in time. And
Yeah.
so, but I can see how, as you tell the story, you were doing a couple of things. You had pressure to get through the event that you had planned, that there was like no way to sort of stop it in the middle, like it was unfolding. It's like, of course, we've got to do the kiss that was on the schedule. We're going to take the photos that we practiced and said that we would do, even though your partner didn't show up the way you would have wanted.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is I feel like every little girl dreams about her wedding and the dress, and I'm such a lover girl. I'm a Cancer, like that's just my where my heart is, and I've imagined this day over and over. Like every boyfriend that I had was like, "Ooh, is this the one?" And then imagining what songs we're gonna play at the wedding and what the girls are gonna wear and the decorations and all of that. And it was the day before, it was raining, torrential downpouring, and I'm like, wow, the worst thing that could happen is it rains on my wedding day. And I'm like, oh, that actually was not the worst thing that could happen.
Right? And you feel the worst, and then the worst thing actually happens. And your families were there and your friends were there. A lot of pressure on the moment. How long did you guys date before the wedding?
We were together for about 5 years,
So a very
and
long time.
yeah, and that's the thing too. I when I was married, I was 33. I'm 34 now. And there's also a lot of pressure, I think, on women when you're in your 30s, your early 30s, and it's just like it's time. Oh, you guys been dating for this time. When's he gonna propose? And I know so many friends that are just like, if he doesn't propose this year, we're breaking up. And I kind of might have had a little pressure on that too. And we're a little bit guilty in that society pressure of just like, yep, you've been together this time, you're this age, it's time to get married. So
It
uh
happens to everybody. It is a crazy thing. You'll just be rolling along and you're like, I'm never, ever going to do that. That's never going to be me. I'm not going to worry about it. And then, over 24 hours, 3 weeks, whatever. It's like the date changes and you're like, oh, you know what? It is time to get this on the road. And then, some of them are very funny, these calendar milestones where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I don't have to think about this when I'm 18, but I do have to think about it necessarily sometimes when I'm 35. And it doesn't happen to everybody. Some people hit that point and they're like, no way, never doing this. But for those who do, and then there's the really stereotypical, because it is so funny, like the roles that are like family plays. So like your mom will start to pressure you, or your grandmother, or like, people show up from the woodwork and they're like, by the way, get on the get on the
Yeah,
wagon.
well, luckily there was no particular pressure for me. I never felt that. My parents actually met when they were 15 years old. They got married at 19.
Yeah.
So my family's from Dominican Republic, so very traditional in that sense. And fortunately, my mom, being a stay-at-home wife, she very much wanted differently from her for her daughters. So she pressured us to get education and to get careers, and she was actually very much on board with me canceling the wedding beforehand when he did have like a little slip up during his bachelor party. And I was like, he's gonna get help. I think it's gonna be okay. And she was like, you know what? It's not too late to cancel. Who cares who booked their trip? Who cares who booked their flights? This is your
Yeah.
life. You need to think about it. I'm like, oh, I should have listened. Sometimes your mom is right.
Yeah, so let's talk more about that, because what did it feel like when you were working on putting together the event? Because these events take on a life of their own, right? The pressure of
Mm-hmm.
the event in the moment. You're like, I've already told everybody I need to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is expecting me. I have a similar moment with my mom where she told me something that I look back and I'm like, oh, I didn't. So when she said that to you, what did it feel like to you in the moment? Did it feel like she was being helpful? Did you just feel like she was trying
You
to,
know, Yeah, so long story short, my father also had his a little stint with alcohol, and my mom was also trying to protect me, and I understand now. Like they're still together. He's a wonderful, wonderful father, incredible. But my mom does know from that perspective of being with somebody for over 50 years of the struggle that I would go through with somebody that is dependent on substances, and the stuff that she would go through. So she was very much on like, you know what, like it's going to be weird to tell people that you canceled it, but this is not the life that you want, because this is the life I have, and I don't have the options. My mom didn't have an education. She basically, they got married at 19. She came
yeah.
here with basically completely dependent on my father, nothing, no skills, nothing aside from being a wonderful mother and a housemaker. And she's like, I gave you the tools for you to be like, tell any guy to, F himself if you're not being treated well. But also, it was those two things of, like, hey, I want to get married, or I thought that that's what I wanted. But I think a lot of women sometimes they think about the aesthetic of weddings and the aesthetic of, oh, being engaged and the ring and the wedding and the dress and all of those things. And I might feel guilty that well, not guilty, but I feel like I might have fell into a little bit of that too, of just like that fantasy versus the reality of actually what marriage is.
Yeah.
It's not just a wedding. It's not just the dress or the aesthetics or the things. So then it's like, all right, you have a wedding, but being married, that's an everyday thing, an everyday commitment, struggle, and also paperwork. And then when you have a child, then you
Hmm.
pass on all of this baggage, and then they absorb whatever energy is with their parents and all of that stuff. And then generational trauma and all of those things. And I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily think that that's what I envision for myself.
Yeah. So in the moment, were you able to greet your mom there and say she's trying to help me, or in the moment were you like, no, no, I got this. Like I'm
Well,
okay.
the thing is that, yeah, the thing is that he was sober before the wedding, and he was pretty okay. So he was very much, cool. Everybody was like, oh, okay, like he seems great. Yeah, he seems pretty healthy. But as the weekend kind of went on, because we got there, the wedding was on Saturday, we got there on Wednesday. So, things, one beer turned into, all right, I'll take a shot with my friends. And okay, like maybe we'll go to the club tonight and have a couple drinks. And then it turned into the night before the wedding, having one too many, being completely hung over the morning that I had yoga on the beach planned. I'm like, I want to have a very grounded day. And it's like, oh crap, he's hung over. And then turned into he's hung over and then he takes a Xanax because he's anxious and then starts drinking more.
So yeah, so there we go. And then when you talk about losing yourself before making this decision, is it in sort of the codependent with a substance user type scenario? Is that what was going on, or what do you mean by saying that?
Yeah. So I was in very much caretaker mode a lot of the
Yeah,
time. I was definitely not in my feminine energy because every morning, the thing is with people that struggle with addiction, it's not just addiction, it's anxiety, it's depression. And drinking or drugs is a coping mechanism to dull those things. So
right.
when they're not doing those things, their emotions during the day are very up and down. So during the relationship, there was always, I was always hyper vigilant, and always, like if he went to bed later than I did, like, is he in the living room drinking? Is he, and there were times if I didn't keep my eye on him, things would happen. Like of the 2 years into our relationship, he totaled my car, and in the middle of the night when I was sleeping. And then I wake up to, hey, babe, I need to tell you something. And it's like, okay. And then, if I wasn't, one night we were watching a movie and he accidentally overdosed on fentanyl in another room. And I'm just like asking him to bring me a blanket. And I'm like, okay. And I was always had my guard up. And that is not necessarily a healthy way for any woman to live her life, because it's like we're already holding so much. We
Yeah.
have careers, we have to, keep the house tidy, and then all of these society things. And also you have to be beautiful and you have to eat right and do your fitness. And I'm like, okay, now I also have to make sure that this man is alive, and
Yeah.
it's kind of, it takes away from that dynamic of the man should be the protector. I am very much a feminist, but I do like traditional gender roles. Like I love to feel protected and safe. And if I'm holding all of that, then it's just it's hard. And I didn't realize how much I was holding until I wake up in the morning now in my beautiful apartment and my kitchen is clean and my car I know is not totaled, and it's
Right.
like, oh, okay, like then I can relax and I can actually be creative and start businesses and, be in a better headspace.
All right. That gives me a good idea of where you came from. There's for people who are in the audience in the community who are curious about this. Do you know Melody Beatty's book, which is from the 80s. It's about it's called Codependent No More. And it was the first book I heard of, which talks about the cycle of where one person takes over and tries to take responsibility, not knowingly. They
Yeah.
make it their responsibility. There's been probably hundreds of books and experts who talk about this cycle since then. But if people are listening to your story and thinking, oh, I hear that and it resonates with some things that are going on in my life, that's a place where people can start because it's an old book. It's at the library. It's almost always free.
Yeah.
All right, so very good. So you make this decision, which it does not sound like you have. I'm not even going to ask you about it because it sounds like you made this decision. You were like, all right, that is done. New change. You
Yeah.
come back to Miami, and the dream of travel and nomad. I think was this something that you had talked about doing together before, and then you
Yeah.
ended up doing it alone?
Yeah, so our lease was going to expire and we were like, hey, let's not renew our lease. Let's like digital nomad and do that for a while. But also, it's fun fact, I've always been a big traveler. That's like it's in my DNA. My father has actually been a travel agent for 40 years.
Okay.
So it's very much ingrained in my, my personality. Like I love new experiences and living in that space. But we were definitely gonna do like some time in Costa Rica and do some time here because we both worked remote. So it was very much like, no, like I'm still gonna do this, even if with or without you.
Very cool. So you do that. So your lease expires, and this all happened. So this is the year. This is just last year. 2025 is the big year.
You're the snake. All
All right.
the
So in 2025, you threw this out. You visit 12 countries in a year. I always ask people when they nomad, not as a judgment of you or anything, but it is a very popular topic. A lot of people are trying to figure out, like at various stages of their life, like, if I wanted to do this, what would it look like? You had a lease that expired and you had stuff. What did you do with your stuff before
Well,
you
actually,
left?
yeah. So I did have a home base still in Miami, still in
Okay.
Edgewater. So I basically was spending quite a bit of money because I still had my place, and
Okay.
I was also traveling with work at some points too. So I would extend those stints. When I was, for instance, in Berlin, I had a work conference, and I'm just like, I mean, I'm just gonna stay here for a couple weeks, and was doing a little bit of that. So it was kind of like nomad, but still dipping my toe into nomad, but still having a home base whenever I needed, to cocoon for a bit.
I think that that's a really important example to give because when you
Mm.
start thinking about traveling and working in different places, it's a big jump. And the examples we always think about are the people who are out there going from place to place, and have no home base and are living out of a van or whatever it might be. But
Oh
in
yeah,
this instance, you've got a job. You're combining this experience and this travel with a salary, with a paycheck, whatever is happening, and you keep a home base. So it's like you're going and you're doing these things. You get 12 countries in a year, but you've got an apartment that you can come home to, where your packages can be delivered, where you're like,
yeah,
you've got like a pharmacy at home, like in case you like need, like
yeah,
all the
yeah. For
things, all the things like that happen. All right, share with us what countries you went to. Germany, I heard you say, and Costa Rica. What are the
Yeah,
other places you hit?
Germany, France. I went to Lisbon a couple times. Croatia, Montenegro. Where else? Costa Rica, Mexico City. Uh, a couple other places that I can't remember at the top of my head, but I was all over the place. I made an Instagram reel, and I'm like, whoa, like I was really outside last year.
Very exciting. And then, so you're traveling some of this with work. Are you doing solo travel and tours as well? Or tell us, like, what did it look
Mostly
like as you're,
solo travel, yes. Mostly solo travel. And then I did a couple of like girl trips. One of my friends was getting married. So we did 3 weeks, a Euro trip. So we did a couple different countries. So we started the south of France. We did Croatia. We did a couple cities, and did that whole thing, which was super fun. But most of the time it was like, hey, I want to go here and do this. And, I don't care who's coming. You can join me if you want, but I'll be there.
all right, so I get it. I haven't been to Croatia, but it looks
So nice.
so pretty.
So
It looks
nice.
so pretty. All right, so very good. So during this, one of the things you called out is that you found a way to, and these are your words, I'm just going to read them back to you, sit with loneliness, freedom, and uncertainty, and how to build your confidence and self-trust along the way. So again, this is one of these reflection questions. This is pretty recent, so it might have been. Did you realize that these were things you were doing in the moment, or is this something that when you looked back at the end of the year, making that Instagram reel and how you had changed, you're like, oh, look at what I did.
Yeah. So one thing about solo travel that it is a radical self act of self-reliance.
Yes.
There is
If you lock yourself out of the Airbnb, you're on your own.
yeah, it is an exercise in self-trust. And I was reading an article that people who solo travel, it's actually one of the strongest ways to build like newer plasticity in your brain, because it's like you're making millions of micro decisions every day, from where's the metro station, and where's my accommodation. You're learning new cities, you're learning new streets, you're making new decisions, you're making new routines, and
Yeah.
it's very much creating a lot of new like pathways in your brain. And also all these micro decisions that you're making make bigger decisions a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier for you to make choices and to trust yourself and not like, maybe should I do this? Like you're able to, be like, okay, like this needs to happen and this needs to happen right now instead of kind of ruminating on the what ifs.
No, I think that's very true. So I did some solo travel in the fall, and I was looking. One of the things I've learned is I don't like to find necessarily an Airbnb in the dark at night by myself, right? Which, when you're with other
Terrible.
people, you have other people to help you like navigate it, but by yourself, like you're saying, there's no one around. You're on your own. So I was looking for this,
Mhm.
and I found it. Everything worked out fine, but it was one of those
Good.
things. Like it was like an entry out of like an alley, and it was dark, and it was like
Okay.
driving around the block like 25 times. Like I park, I read the Airbnb description again. I remember I was like, okay, so I could call this person, and then the light hit, and I was like, oh, there's an alley, and then it looked like the picture, and I was able to figure it out. But it was like, you don't have anybody else around you. You have to figure it out on your own.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
that was, and I was like, okay, so new, and like you were saying, when you were saying earlier, it was like, this is a little bit my fault. I was like, I made this plan. This was not actually the best
Yeah. And
plan
you're
I've ever
carrying all
made.
your bags and you're sweaty
Right,
and you're tired.
exactly. Exactly. I was never in any danger or anything, but I was just like, this doesn't exist. Like, where am I? Okay. So anyway, you talked about this, what these things are important and help for you for neuroplasticity, getting better and making your own decisions. Um, when did the concept of sisterhood enter in with you as you were like traveling?
Yeah, so fun fact, and it's, I guess, not necessarily a fun fact, but a lot of women that are traveling solo do go on dating apps to find people to hang out with because
Ah,
solo travel does get lonely. And it's like one of the biggest, things is like these international entanglements or these international situationships because it's, if you're eating dinner by yourself or going out by yourself, you're like, I'm kind of bored. Like, I mean, or I would love to have someone to hang out with. So it is very common to go on these dating apps to meet people, and sometimes they're cool, sometimes they're weird. But for me, I was trying to find like community and friendship also because I was tired of going on the dating apps and it's exhausting. And then you have like these people in your life, and I'm like, I don't really want that. I feel also what I learned too is that women, we naturally heal in, togetherness. Like women, we are tribal by nature. And there's also studies that show like that when women vent to each other, your cortisol levels are, go a lot like lower than it would even from like exercise. So it's actually really, really interesting. So that's basically the preface of that. And I was going to travel for about 3 weeks to Lisbon, Portugal. And I was thinking, like, hey, like, how am I going to meet friends there? Like, I've been to Lisbon a couple times. I might know like one or two people. And I'm like looking, like, seeing, like, okay, like, there's different Facebook groups, there's different WhatsApp groups, and they're mostly kind of co ed. There's some that's for women, there's Meetup, there's all of these things. And I found like other, girls groups. Like in Lisbon, there's a group called Nomad Girls Club that they do, like events and meetups and all of that stuff. It's a very nomad city, a lot of expats and solo travelers in and out, especially women. So I was thinking like there had to be, an app. A lot of people also use like Bumble BFF to
yeah.
find like friends and stuff. And I'm like, there has to be an app for female solo travelers. It's a huge demographic, and also expats and digital nomads. Like this is it's a huge demographic and growing. And I'm like, there has to be something for it. So I did a little searching and I found out that there wasn't anything. So I decided that I think that was my idea to build. And basically bringing a lot of different female communities together so we can find each other, find community, find friendship and sisterhood. Because I also finding through that when you're going through a breakup, going into other relationships is not necessarily the healthiest thing to do. Finding friendships and being in more platonic and safer environments is a lot easier to heal than through a relationship.
So to recap, all right, so you were traveling by yourself, you were working on being alone, you were happy being alone, but there are times that you want to have companionship in these cities. And the easiest way for you to do that, you knew about the expat groups, which you every time you go to a new place, you have to find the new group on Facebook or
Yeah.
WhatsApp or whatever. And you also knew about the dating apps where you can just plug in, I'm in Kalamazoo, tell me who's available, right? So those were the things that you were using to find friendship. And you were also at the same time learning and becoming aware yourself and researching how helpful it is to have a community of women to not just socialize, but to support each other and live and do all of those things in addition to all the other types of relationships we have. But yes, all right, so very good. So you find this gap in the marketplace, and you realize you're living it. So you're living it at the time. You're doing the research, and you say that you realized how difficult it was for people to find authentic, safe community while they were navigating change. And so you began to talk about that a little bit because you highlight that you were aware that you were going through this breakup and you wanted to be careful about that. I want to talk more, give you a chance to talk more about that because I'm all about safe community and supportive women community and the challenge of finding the authentic community, which we'll talk about more. But I would love to give you more of a chance to talk about how you became sort of focused on the element of change because I've not seen that in like community type stuff before. It's like be on the lookout for, I mean, listen, everybody tells you like don't cut your hair like, you know, when you're pregnant and stuff like that. There are times where people are like, be careful. But generally speaking, the friendship group thing when you're going through change, I think that that's more common than we realize. I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's so important because women, we heal each other. And I feel that when we actually talk about it, it's so helpful because a lot of women are going through similar things, even if it's not exactly the same thing. But also when you're in that space of, hey, like I went through something difficult and this is kind of what I'm doing, or this is the change that I made in my life, like you can do it too. And I think also that's something that I feel like my story has been very helpful to women because even women that are in relationships that they're just like, I don't really know if I really want to be with this person or blah, blah, blah. And like we've been together, but I'm afraid to leave. I'm afraid to start over and like get a new place by myself. I'm like, you can do it. Like I can do it. Like, yeah, it's not easy. It's not fun sometimes, but you have to if and also people have to realize you have one life. This is
Yeah.
it. There's no other life. There is no other the time or in the future. And it's like time moves very quickly. So it's either you're going to be happy with the life that you have, or you're going to be thinking what if for the rest of your life. And I think it's important, going back to making those micro decisions. Like once I made a very big hard decisions, making micro decisions became a lot easier.
The other thing I'll say, I'm a little bit older than you are, and one of the things that I will say is that it seems like there's a division between is this going to happen to me or is this not when it comes to relationship change. That's actually kind of an illusion because most people, even if you have a long, like your parents have had a long relationship, but there are times within their relationship where they've probably had to make decisions about how they're going to just live. And then there are 100 different types of situations that throw people into the surprise of, oh gosh, now I have to make a change. The one that's most famous is the divorce. But, people also
Mm-hmm.
become widows. And even if you make this, even if you go through this when you're 92 years old and 89, it's going to be easier if you've thought it through, like if you've set it up. And one of the things that's really interesting is, and my theory is that all ties back to the bridal magazine that we sell each other the illusion of like forever and ever. But that's not actually the way it like works out. I remember my mother-in-law, like this is decades ago, and she and her husband had like never been apart, and he just went and took a trip with his sons and grandkids, and she was like very like, oh my gosh, what do I do with myself, just for those few days. But having access to people who are like, oh, just you're gonna watch TV with us, and then we're gonna be fine. Anyway, I'm off track. We're going to wrap up in a second. I don't often get to talk to people who've actually done the work of creating the apps for community. So I came up with this question that I'm very curious about. It might be a terrible question, but I'm super curious to ask you. The apps are famous for being, and you even mentioned it, like the dating apps, people are exhausting. It's so hard to tell
Mhm.
what's real and what's not. And so not necessarily, focused on your app or anything, but just the general modern skill, which you're becoming an expert in making authentic connection on these
Yeah.
digital platforms. I mean, I can go into a digital platform and make an introduction, a very service level thing. But do you have any tips that you've learned as you've done this through experience and building your app and your community that are how you go from, oh yeah, hi, like we're both in the same city to an authentic sort of next level connection?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that I also do with the app is that all of the cities that I'm live in, I partner with a lot of already established women communities that I pre-vet already. So there are communities that are already existing that are inclusive, different types of women. So like let's say regardless, like, hey, you meet someone on the app or blah blah blah, or maybe you don't want to just go on a grab a cup of coffee with a stranger. You can go to a girls' dinner that's happening or a girls' meetup or women's healing circle or dance or do a coffee walk or a wine tasting with a group of women, and also travel with a group of women and these so what I do also is all of the communities that are on my app are also pre-vetted by me, so I make sure that it's women of all ages, of sizes, of nationalities, of backgrounds. Like Miami, for instance, has a lot of communities. Like that is one of the biggest growing demographics here. But there are some communities, unfortunately, that are, I'm not going to say that they're not authentic, but there'll be groups that it's just like, oh, like Pilates girls, and they're all like the same body type and little pink Pilates outfits. And it's like, that's amazing. And I love that if there's a community for those women. But what I want to do is like for RoamCircle is making sure that there's, every woman sees themselves in it. And it's not like, oh, oh, it's just for those girls or this age or blah, blah, blah. Like I do want, and that's, I think, where the authenticity comes from because I'm putting my heart into this and I'm creating something that I wish that I had during those lonely times. And also, what I'm noticing is that the women that the app actually is attracting is so many really authentic women too. And it's like, I mean, I haven't met everybody personally. The app is growing like insane. But when I look at the profiles of the type of women, it's some women that have kids, some women that are in their early 20s that are starting their own businesses that are also entrepreneurs, women that are in the healing and meditation space, women that also have their own communities. So it's actually really, really cool to see what it's attracting off like organically, which is exactly what I wanted to do. And it's happening without me necessarily monitoring it. I guess it's the marketing, I guess, behind it. It's just like, no, like this is a safe space for any type of women. So it's been really cool. And I'm sure like as it grows, there's always possibilities for things to change. And there's always the one creepy guy that's trying to join. And I'm like, get out of here, guy. Like, like this is very much a women's app, but now I have safety features in place where you could be authenticated. And it's just like, come on, Rob from New Jersey. Like, you're not welcome here.
I very inappropriately giggled when you brought up the Pilates group because I mean, listen, there's like 5 million Pilates groups in Miami, but there is a variety. You have to like learn the signal of what you're getting into when it comes to to athleticism in Miami because there's everything from Third Street Yoga, which is like free on the beach, and
Mhm.
then heavily influencer brand deal all at the same time in the same city. And so I giggled and I wanted to just shed some light on that, that I assume that it's like that in other cities, but it's a very distinct culture, specifically in Miami when it comes to the,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and I'm actually, so now that I'm dipping my toe into global communities, there are that it's everywhere actually. It's
yeah,
not Miami's its own animal because like this is where all the influencers live,
right.
but it's actually I'm noticing very similarly in Dubai. Like there's so many women's community, but some of them are very closed off to like it's just like nope, these are only Arabic women. Like you
Yep.
cannot like so and I don't and or like other groups. For instance, I was kind of like chatting with a group in California, and it's just like, oh, like Latinas only, like this is a Latina group. And I love that. And I love that there's community for women that where women can see themselves. But
Yes.
I really want to build a community where it doesn't matter if you're Chinese, Latina, Black, an alien, like
Yes.
anything. I want a community where people could feel like they see themselves, and even if they don't necessarily see themselves, that they feel accepted. And I think that's extremely important.
I think it's really important. I also think that, the specialized communities are really important, but we oftentimes need a bigger pool for them to sprout from, right? Because if there's no big pool, if you don't fit in one, you're like, well, where are my people? So anyway, I think it's both. We need both. But okay, so you formed what is called RoamCircle, which is an app. Share with us. I'd love to know where you got the name. Where did you come up with the name?
So long story short, I had this idea in the airport coming from New York. That's where my family's from to Miami. I'm sitting at the Amex lounge and about to travel to Lisbon, Portugal in a couple weeks. And that's when I was telling you about like all the Facebook groups, the
Yeah.
WhatsApp groups and different. I'm like, how am I going to meet people? And that's when I had the idea that I'm like, I'm searching and I'm like, there has to be an app. There's an app for everything. There has to be something that ready
Yeah.
for what I'm looking for. And when I realized that there wasn't, I actually sat with ChatGPT and I'm like, oh my God, I have this idea. And I'm like going like, I'm like, this is the idea that I have. Like, this is what I like want. And I'm like, help me think of names, you know? So it's like, like roaming around,
Yep.
like people that are going to different places, and circle, like circle community. And it's basically those two words together. ChatGPT thought it was a great idea. I was also thinking like tribe and blah, 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 but there's apps already that are called tribe. Like I did want it to make it feel like community, but for people that are moving around, that you have community everywhere. And then circle, like from the brand perspective, like a globe,
Yep.
it's just like very much global. So like within the second that I had the name, within a half an hour, I had the Instagram, I had the website for it, I had a logo. Like I honestly like that founder moment. I'm just like, I need to create this right now, right now, right now. And that's like basically what it's been. Like I mean, by the time this comes out, will be a little bit past, but basically I had this idea in August. And in November, the app was already live. So 90 days from the idea to the app. And then since that, 180 days after that, I have 12 cities live at the moment and growing.
That is really, really exciting. So, just quick question: did you work with a team to build this app, or did you like vibe code it yourself?
So long story short, I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, what's the easiest, fastest way for me to do this? So I found a website that did like the vibe coding, and I
Yeah.
basically coded the front end and did all of that. But then I found out that that's not a real app. You can't put that on the app store. Like that could maybe live on the web or whatever. And then I basically go back to ChatGPT. I'm like, you lied to me. Like you said that. And I'm like, what do I do next? And it's like ChatGPT goes, Liz, breathe. And I'm like, okay, like now what? So I found another website that had the back end,
Yeah.
like code, kind of the dating app interface, which is basically kind of what I modeled RoamCircle after, and was like, okay, like I can then build, like design the front end and the code's already there, and then I could put on the app store. But I'm like, there's still so much that needs to be done. So I found this website called Contra, and you could hire people to do stuff. And I found a guy in Nigeria that said he would do it for $300. And fun fact, if somebody in Nigeria says they're going to do something for you for any amount of money, it's probably not real. So long story short, weeks and weeks go by. Like I've already told everybody about this. Like, I mean, for me in my head, I was like, this has to happen. I'm like, I already went on Instagram. I already told all my like 200 followers, like this is supposed to be happening. So I had a friend introduce me to an amazing coder, amazing engineer who's done apps like before, like hundreds of apps, millions of users, like extremely talented, and basically got on the call with the guy in Nigeria and asked him like, hey, where's the code? And the guy's like, look, on screen sharing. And it turns out there was no code. He wasn't doing anything. He was just kind of pulling me around because he wasn't a coder. He was just waiting for his $300. So I did have a incredible developer that I work with that, like we're basically like a team. He's also Dominican, lives in Miami as well. So it's been a really cool partnership because it's like, this is what I want. And he was able to bring the app to life very, very quickly because it's like that's his bread and butter
Yeah.
onto the app store with all and help me figure out all of the paperwork that needs to be done and all the C Corp and all that stuff, and always messaging me like, hey, we need to set up the API. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Just do it. Like I work in marketing. I'm a global marketing strategist. Like I know how to do the strategy. Like you do the code, leave me out of the API and all that stuff. Like I don't care.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty standard trajectory. Like it's like vibe coding is really, really powerful, but there are also times where you're like, no. And I think that the white labeling part where it's like you start with something that is, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could, there are people out there I think could jump over those hurdles because they knew more, but I almost feel like that's like you have to go through some of those steps, even the scammy developer, so that you learn and you
Yeah.
refine your ID. So each of those are there. All right. So RoamCircle is free to download, but there's a premium upgrade, just like the other. I think that's a very common, I think we all know how that works in 2026. You can find it on the
Yes.
App Store, Google Play Store, all of the things. The website for RoamCircle for everybody who is watching and listening or reading in the newsletter, which is the easiest way to get the links, is roamcircle.app. So that is very, very cool. I think it's a wonderful story. I love so many of the things you said. Are you ready to wrap this up with my 3 silly questions?
Yes.
All
I don't
right.
want this to end though. Like come over. Let's go. Let's have a glass of wine.
100%. All right. So very cool. So if you could be a magical creature, this is such a random question. I should have put this in the middle, not the first one. But okay, if you could be a magical creature, would you choose to be like a witch, a wizard, a werewolf, a vampire? I can't even know. I don't even know if there's any other magical. What magical creature would you choose to be?
I honestly think
Time traveler,
I would be a phoenix because I think I'm very much
phoenix.
a phoenix because I went through something difficult and I rose from the ashes even stronger. And I think very much I relate to that phoenix energy.
That is a terrific answer. It wasn't even on the list, and I love that. All right, so very good. So, as a person, do you prefer to do things that are like fancy, where you have a chance to dress up, or do you prefer to do things where you can dress casually and comfortably and show up in your like sweats?
Oh, girl, I don't even own sweats. I am very much a fancy lady. I love sequins, like faux fur, lace, leather. I'm very much like my spirit animal is Joan Rivers, so very much like love that energy, like that. Also, I'm from New York, so like the gaudy Italian. Like I would be the gaudiest grandma, like in the supermarket in her fur jacket, pound of makeup, pound of perfume. Like that's who I want to be when I'm like in my like 70s. But I'm also like I've been camping, I've done hiking, I've hiked through Machu Picchu for 5 days, so I could do it all, but I love getting dressed up and getting gussied up. Like I like to feel good.
Very cool, very cool. Third and final, do you have a favorite luggage brand that you are loyal to when you travel?
No, whatever's on Amazon, whatever where the wheels don't fall off. I am very much. I had a company give me like this really fancy luggage that was like hard on the outside. I like to fit all of my stuff in a carry-on, so I need a
Yeah.
suitcase as a little give. Like even if sometimes they're like that's not gonna fit. I'm like I know this is gonna fit. This is an A380. I know exactly this plane. But that's like also one fun fact about me is that I do not like to check my bags. I don't care how long I am. Like I'll do my laundry, but I love to have a carry on. But the wheels have to be good. They have to spin and they have to not fall off on cobblestone streets. That's all I need.
100%. Oh my gosh, the wheels that spin so you can go on all four wheels, and it has to be a roll between the seats on the airplane. Like that's I will shop based on what I see in the airplane. If I'm annoyed with my luggage, I will look around and I'm like, what does that
What do you
person have?
have?
Right,
Give me
exactly.
that.
That's exactly what I would do. That's it, Liz Rivas. Thank you so much for being a terrific guest on today's show.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Thank you for listening today. I hope that you enjoy the show. And before I go, I want to encourage you to become a bigger part of the conversation. Obviously, subscribe wherever you're listening to the show. Listen to more episodes. That'd be great. Again, please write a review and tell your friends about the show. That truly is a great help for getting the show in front of new people. Okay, but more fun for you yourself. Head over to imperfectadulting.com and join the email community. You'll get some free stuff right away, and that way you'll begin to get the emails about the podcast. This includes the links for the special offers from the guests, and it's the only way to get that. Also, if you aren't in the mood to listen, I actually include an article directly in those emails. Whee! Now, if you love this and you crave more time with me, Amy, as a coach, a mentor, or just adultier adult, numero uno, check out The Village. If you have a story you want to share with the listeners, I'd love to hear from you. I have an open application. Just let me know you want it. And that's a wrap for today. Until next time, remember, the journey is the destination. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that, not me. Well, until just now, I did just say it. But what I want you to hear today is that if your adulting journey isn't going the way you expected, that may not mean that you're lost. It may just mean that you're on your way. This is Amy Stone, signing off. The Imperfect Adulting podcast is created and produced by Amy Stone and Amy Says So. Anything expressed on this show is offered as entertainment, and the views of the guests may not always represent the ideas and viewpoints of the host. That's me. Amy does not intend or hold herself out to provide professional advice or recommendations of any kind. In the end, you and you alone need to make those kinds of decisions based on your personal and individual situation, needs, circumstances, and comfort level.